You're listening to the Journey to Launch podcast. I'm giving you a sneak peek of 5 of the 10 steps you need to implement in order to map your journey to financial independence.
T-minus 10 seconds.
Welcome to the Journey to Launch podcast with your host, Jamila Souffrant. As a money expert who walks her talk, she helps brave journeyers like you get out of debt, save, invest, and build real wealth. Join her on the journey to launch to financial freedom in
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, journeyers. Welcome to the Journey to Launch podcast. If you are totally new, welcome. Sit back, buckle up. We are taking off to financial freedom and independence. And if you're an OG journeyer or someone who's been following me for a while, then you know what's up. This is going to be a solo episode, and I can't wait to get into it. Before we hop into this week's episode, I want to bring you a word from today's sponsor. Journey to Launch is brought to you by First Republic Bank. The world is changing, and your needs are evolving. As your focus turns to what matters most to you and your community, First Republic remains committed to offering personalized financial solutions that fit your needs. From day one, you'll be connected with a dedicated banker who will serve as your primary point of contact throughout your relationship with the bank. They'll be there to listen to you, understand your values, and meet you on your financial journey. Your banker can offer solutions that support your goals at any stage, from setting up a personal checking account to refinancing household debt to buying a first home. As your needs evolve, you can call or email your banker at any time for the support you need, because First Republic believes what matters to you matters most. Learn more at firstrepublic.com. That's firstrepublic.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. All right, so funny thing, I am doing a solo episode today, and I keep promising that I'm going to do more of them, and I will. So this week is going to be a solo episode, and next week is going to be one. And if you follow me on my Journey to Launch or Jamila Souffrant Instagram, I sometimes share the behind the scenes of my life. And really, I do it on Jamila Souffrant, mostly like the personal side of building Journey to Launch and the business. And fun fact, this is the second time I'm recording this episode, but it will be the last time. I recorded this originally a couple days ago, and I shared on my Jamila Souffrant stories how hard it is for me to do solo episodes. And so when I did that, I got a couple of responses like, keep it, don't delete it, don't re-record. And I'm like, yes, I know, but I feel like the first time I recorded this, I left some things out. I wanted to be clear. And so I'm doing this one more time, and I'm going to make sure this is going to be it. And I'm sharing the behind the scenes, even on the podcast right now, to show you that despite the finished effect or the product that you see comes out from myself, Journey to Launch, I'm human. I have lots of hangups, especially like about talking, which people can't believe, right? Like, you're like, come on, Jamila, like you speak to thousands of people on your podcast every week. You are confident in all those things. And I am, I'm all those things, but you can be confident, you can be successful, and you can still have doubts. You can still, have that negative Nancy in your head telling you that you can't do something. And I'm here to be proof to you that you can push through all those blocks, because that's what I do every day when I show up and I do this work for Journey to Launch. It's not easy putting myself out there and speaking in this way, but I have something to share that I know can help others. And I know it helps you guys. You let me know. And it's really helpful that you let me know. Sometimes, yes, internal validation is all you should need. And I'm all for that, not needing any outside proof or validation. But it doesn't hurt when you get people who tell you, listen, what you're doing is changing my life, has changed my life. And so that for me is just even more fuel. So in this week's episode, what I wanted to do is break down and kind of give you some tips. So I created this 10-step framework for you, for anyone to be able to create their path to financial independence. I created this 10-step framework. And by the way, I'm also doing a free class on October 22nd. So depending on when you're listening to this, you can still join me, journeystolaunch.com/free class. And at that free class, I'll be talking about how you can craft your financial freedom and independence journey. So how you can unlock freedom while you are on the journey, which is so important, because I am not one to wait to enjoy the fruits of your labor, to deprive yourself while you're on this path to having all the money you ever need and not having to work for anyone else for the rest of your life. That's the big goal. But until then, how do you live a life that is something that you deserve, that you're happy and fulfilled with, and that you're still unable to unlock options along the way? So this free class will be talking about that. It's going to be on October 22nd. So I know this episode comes out real time on Wednesday, October 21st. Sometimes you guys listen right away. Sometimes it takes a while. So I'm doing this episode to remind you to sign up for the course. Why do I keep saying course? Free class, journeystolaunch.com/free class. You still have time to join me. And then though, if you are listening to this after the fact, do not fret. I still have some tips for you. And this is why I keep saying course, because I am launching my 10-step course. So I wanted to share with you some steps that are within that course. That way you can, even if you're just listening and maybe this is the first time you're hearing my voice or you don't even know who I am, maybe you've been around for a while, that you can now take some ideas from this course that you can still take. So you can still, if you happen to listen to this when the course doors are open. So I'm only having doors open for this course from October 23rd to the 29th, only a week. And if you happen to listen to this within that time frame and you want to join us, you can. But even if you don't, you listen to this after the fact, I wanted to give you some key takeaways that you can start to think about in terms of how you can craft your own financial independence journey. And literally, these are the things that I've done. So I've done these things. I've even tested this course with this framework. So I'm going to go between course and framework. I'm going to call it the same thing right now. This framework is the same framework that I've had my Money Launch Club members go through. And it has produced wild results for people. It's produced wild results for me. So I wanted to share some of that with you on the podcast today. Now, I'm not going to go through all 10 steps. If you want more of the information, I'll go through that in the free class that I'm doing on October 22nd. And you can get more details on the course sales page if you want to sign up and join us in this first round where I'm going to be taking people really through the 10 steps together. We are going to do this as a group. You're going to have me coaching you through it. So I wanted to just give you some of the tidbits from these 10 steps in order for you to craft your plan. So we're going to start with step 1. So step 1 is the beginning step. It's a step that allows you to understand what financial independence and financial freedom means to you, because it means something different to a lot of people. Even when I mention it, I kind of use it interchangeably. I say, oh, come with me on the journey to financial independence, financial freedom. But financial independence or freedom can mean different things. Independence, the technical term for financial independence, is having enough money saved and invested in your portfolio. So your investment accounts across your retirement accounts, non-retirement accounts. Maybe you have a real estate portfolio, even a business that spins off money where you don't have to actively work again. So, picture you having $1 million portfolio and it's giving you dividends, is returning you on an annual basis $40,000. Then if you can live off of $40,000, meaning that's enough to cover your expenses, then you don't have to work actively. Again, that's the technical definition of financial independence. And so this is the goal that I encourage everyone to work towards. When you think about this as a big goal, it's very, I think, inspiring, right? But I think once you get into the numbers of it, it can be overwhelming, quite frankly, because depending on where you are, if you're listening to this and you have tons of debt, right? Let's say you're paying off student loan debt, you're paying off car notes, you have a big mortgage, you have kids. There's so many things that can be just in your path that you have to figure out in order to get to this big goal. So what does that mean? Does it mean that you can't experience happiness and freedom until you have $1 million, $2 million in your investment account? I think not. So I believe in unlocking financial freedom on the path. So defining what that all means is really important, because if you don't define what financial freedom means, what it means for you to feel happy on the journey, then you'll forever be on the treadmill. It will feel like, the people who wait until they're retired to have fun and be happy. So that person at your job, when I was working, there were people at my job where they were maybe in their 30s or 40s and they were working for a retirement. They were when I get to 65, that's when I'll live my life. And I'm oh, hell no, that's not going to be me. And to me, I see that as the same people who are on this path of financial independence and they're not happy, right? They're well, it's going to take me 10, 15 years to get there, to retire early, quote unquote. So I'm going to have to like struggle the whole time, but you're not enjoying anything on the way, right? So unless you figure out what it is that it means to you. So financial freedom can mean different things. You can unlock different levels of freedom as you go. So that's every time you pay off a debt. That's every time you learn a concept and you feel more energized and confident in investing. That's when you take a risk and invest in yourself. Like all these things are unlocking options and giving you freedom along the path. So first we need to define what that is. So that's what step 1 is all about. You define what it is and you define your ultimate financial independence number. So I've talked about this in previous podcasts, but I think the biggest issue that people have with thinking about financial independence is like, what is my number? And sometimes to even calculate the number is overwhelming. Because if you think about how much it will take for you to never have to work again, like how much you'd have to amass in your portfolios, that's a lot of money. And it depends on how much you want to spend. So if you are, frugal, it's just you by yourself, maybe you want to only spend $40,000 a year. And so to calculate that number, I'll give you a quick kind of like way to do it. You would take how much you want to spend annually and you multiply it by 25. Now that's based on the 25 times rule and 4% withdrawal rate. And I go through more of that in the course, and there's some more content. Even if you just like Google the 25 times rule or 4% withdrawal rate, tons of great information on that. But that's just like figuring out your number. And that's kind of what the first step is, because unless you kind of understand what it is that you're working towards, it's going to be super hard to figure out like then the next steps to take. So we do that in step 1. That's what I talk about. The next step. So step 2, this is a really important step. I do talk more about this, obviously in the course, but also in the free class. If you have time to sign up on October 22nd, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time to see me live talk about this, is your mindset and your habits. So understanding what those things are, because I know we want to jump right into, okay, this is numbers, right? You're telling me I need $2 million or $1 million invested. How do I get to the numbers? How do I make more? How do I spend less if that's your goal? And honestly, like you can't do any of those things properly until you get your mindset and habits right, because that's what's really going to drive and sustain you on the journey. That's what's going to get you to where you ultimately want to be. So step 2 is really understanding where you currently are, what your mindset is, and what it is that you need to do to improve any limiting beliefs or things that are holding you back. And with that, you have to be super, super honest with yourself. So changing your mindset, changing your perspective is everything, because if you think you can't, you can't. If you think paying off one credit card means nothing and you're still going to be stuck, then you're going to be stuck, right? It's all about how you see things. It's all about how you view money. There's all these like hidden roots in ourselves that we need to unnerve and unearth in order to bloom. And so a lot of this stuff is important, and people want to jump to all like the fancy, like sexy things, right? But some of this stuff right here, like the mindset, the habits, envisioning what your life is, this is important not only for like your ultimate goals, but this is what allows you to enjoy the journey along the way, because then you get a better understanding of who it is you're becoming as you work towards financial independence. So while the goal is so important, like for me, it's important, but it's not the most important part. The journey is. So until you can understand how you can enjoy the journey, you'll be miserable. So step 2 is like a combination of a lot of things. It's your mindset. It's your habits. It's identifying where you are, but then understanding like what it is going to take for you to like become the person you want to be and not wait to do that, right? The numbers, like, let's just say your goals are to earn more money, your goals, some of these things take a while to do, some things, but you can change your mindset. You can change the way you perceive something. You can change how you feel about something faster than some of the other things that you'll have to do on this journey. Doesn't mean it'll be easy, but it means you are in control completely of your mind, of your habits. The other things, yes, maybe other people have inputs in it, right? Your boss, or maybe your current situation is like kind of something that right away you can't change, but you are the driver. You are the pilot of your own rocket ship. I know I talk a lot about launching to financial independence and coming with me, but I like to see that or envision that we all are like in separate rockets. I mean, you can get in my rocket if you want, but we all are on our paths, and we are, getting inspired, and, you're getting some rocket boost from my rocket. I'm getting some rocket fuel from your rocket. We're all in sync, like kind of doing our own thing, but together in order to reach our goals. So therefore, it's you that has to decide and figure out what exactly it is that you need on this journey. So that's step 2. Okay, step 3. I know it seems like I'm going through all the steps, but I'm not. I'm going to have to skip some. If you want to see all the steps, join me at the class on October 22nd, journeytolaunch.com/free class. And if you happen to watch this after or listen to this after the fact, check out the FI course where we go through all this in detail. Okay. And that you can find at journeytolaunch.com/FI course. Step 3, defining and mapping out your goals. Super important because we already talked about this big goal of having all the money you'll ever need, never having to work again, which is great. Amazing. But there are so many other things that you have to do before you reach that. So in order to map out your goals, you need to understand where you are at each level and what goals go with each stage of your journey. Now, I've talked about the 5 journeyer stages before. I won't go into too much detail. I'll link the episode where I talked about the 5 journeyer stages in the episode show notes. But essentially, there are 5 stages to reach financial independence. The first stage is reaching financial stability. So that's where you get out of the red every month and, you can pay your bills and your debt. Stage 2 is the cadet stage. That's where you're working on paying off all your consumer debt. Once you finish that stage, you move on to the aviator stage. Remember, these are the 5 journeyer stages. Stage 3 is the aviator stage. You are now building financial security. So this is a stage where you're investing and saving and you're building your assets up. After you have a secure ground here, you can move to stage 4, which is the captain stage. The captain stage allows you to have work flexibility. Now, this is a stage I believe everyone can get to, but this stage allows you to essentially choose what you do for work. Now, it doesn't mean you never work again, but you have more flexibility. This is the stage where I am in. And then after this stage, you can move to the commander stage. The commander stage is financial independence. So that's stage 5. So I just really quickly broke down those 5 stages because within those stages, as you can see, while it took me maybe a couple minutes to just go through that, in real life, it does not take you a couple minutes. It can take years to go through a stage. So if you are in the cadet paying off debt stage, that can take you years depending on your starting point. So how do you measure your success here? How do you define and map out your goals within this? And so it's important to know at each stage, especially the stage you're in, you can forecast your goals in the other stages, but the stage you're in right now, it's important to understand what it's going to take for you to get from where you are now to the next stage. So for the debt payoff stage, you'd create goals around paying off your debt, around understanding how to invest, all these things which are specific to your stage. So that's step 3, defining and mapping out your goals. And there are different ways to map out your goals, but one of the ways that I do it in the FI course is you map it out by the 5 journeyer stages. But then you do map it out just by making also each goal, no matter like what stage you're in, SMART. You make it a SMART goal. You make it specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. You also need to, what I call, do a goal fuel. So this is a nifty thing I came up with, thinking about how do you get to any goal that you want to accomplish. And regardless of what goal it is, at what level or stage you're in, typically it's going to take either one or all of these things. You're going to either need to increase your income, be more conscious with your expenses, so either cut back or optimize, or change your habit and or mindset. So these things are going to fuel how you get to your goal. And so we work through what that is. But really important, step 3, defining and mapping out your goals. All right, I'm going to give you a taste of 2 more steps. And hopefully, again, this can help you regardless if you decide to take action and join us in the FI course or not. I really believe that this will be helpful to you, even if you just start to think about this, how you can start applying this in your life. Okay. Step 4. Okay. So this has been the hardest step for people who have taken the course, but it's the most, like, once you do it, you are done, like not done forever, but done meaning you laid it all out on the line. This is step 4, the money assessment. So this is where I am asking you to be real with yourself and get intimate with your finances. So that's where we're going to look at all your assets, all your debt, all your income, all your expenses. So this allows us to really see where you are, because until we understand where you are, there's no way we can map out how you get from $20,000 of debt to $1 million in investments. We can't do that unless we understand, one, if you really are $20,000 in debt or maybe $30,000 in debt, or until we realize, okay, what's your income and what's your expenses, right? What do we need to change? What do we need to focus on in order to accelerate, in order to get to the goals that you're trying to reach, right? And so this money assessment, every time that I've had someone go through it, it was like, oh my gosh, like I've been avoiding this, but once I did it, it just felt so good. And it opened my eyes to what was happening with my finances. So this is where you basically just like pull everything out. So this is where you organize things into the things you own, your assets, the things you owe, liabilities, your income, so what's coming in your household, and your expenses, what's going out. We get a sense of this, and then we're able to get to work. This is where now we're starting to get to where we can work on what's going on. There are a few more steps between. I'm going to skip forward, but this one I really want to get to because this step really means a lot. This is what I find to be the most powerful step in the whole thing. I mean, all the steps have equal footing. You need to do it in order, I believe, in order to get the full effect. But when you get to this step, this is more later down, is step 8. This is where you can start to see the confidence change in like yourself and you reaching your goals. Because I know like you listen to this podcast, especially if you've been listening for a while, I know you know that financial independence and freedom is for you. I know you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if it wasn't. But unfortunately, sometimes like feeling that way and then having doubts about being able to reach it, like it's normal. It's normal to feel that way, you know? And what happens is we get excited about the prospects of reaching financial independence when we vision our life, like doing what we want. It's amazing. I mean, not having to work for a paycheck, working because you want to. Who doesn't want that? And I think when you do realize like your starting point and basically where you need to be. So, you know, we figured out in step 1, kind of like how much is this that I need based on my spending. It can be discouraging. It can feel like, wait a second, how do I, especially, you know, after you even do that assessment, how do I get from here to there and how long will it take? And so this step, so I'm skipping to step 8 here because it's time now to map out your plan. It's time to map it out, not in a way in which you're like, oh, I'm just going to pay off debt and then maybe I'll just put away $2,000 a year in, you know, my investing accounts. And I don't know, hopefully I'll get to 1.5 million. We're not doing that. Not in this step. We are able now in this step. What I want you to do in this step and what I've done in my course with this is I'm allowing you to actually plug in your actual numbers. You're plugging in your numbers to see exactly how it is you're going to get from point A, where you are now, to point Z, where you ultimately want to be. And so it's literally putting in your investing numbers. It's putting in how much you want to spend. And it's doing it actually very specifically. I created this thing called the Fire Calc tool. I feel like I need to come up with a better name for it. It's the name I have now. And it allows you to put in exactly per year how much you're investing and saving. Now, I actually created this tool and I used it. So this was something really powerful for me because this is the tool that I created that when I did it, I showed my husband what our life could look like, how we could, you know, essentially still live a good life now, but then reach this a goal and have $1 million, $2 million by this point. This is the spreadsheet I showed him for him to be like, wait, we can do that? And I was like, yes, look, because if we do this per year, we can do that. Oh, but if we take a break because, you know, we're buying a car or we're doing something different, it's okay because this is what's happening. This is the same tool that I used when it was time to think about quitting my job, if it was possible, that I could do this. Could I jump into entrepreneurship full time, taking a break? Because if you followed my story, started Journey to Launch, really just to chronicle my path to financial independence, was all going to just stay working at my job, earning my 6 figures, saving and investing aggressively. And we were able to do that. That's how we were able to save $169,000 in 2 years. We were able to pool our income together, my husband and I, and like save and invest like crazy. So now when I had the opportunity to do Journey to Launch full time, and I was faced with this idea of freedom. And here's, you know, this is why it's so important to map out your goals and to understand what freedom means to you. Because when I first started, it was about our income and money and saving and investing as much as I could. That's how it first started out, Journey to Launch. And as I started to go down the path, I realized how much more important my time was. It would no longer became just about investing and saving as much as possible. I realized, especially like as a mom, at that point, starting Journey to Launch until where I am now, I was like having more kids. I have 3 altogether now. I had my job, which was a crazy long commute, 2 hours, typically 1.5 to 2 hours one way driving, and Journey to Launch, which was like, budding and taking off and doing all these amazing things, right? And so I quickly realized that nope, I'm not valuing the money and income for my freedom. I'm valuing the time and flexibility. That's what's more important for me. So it no longer became about how fast I could reach financial independence. It became in terms of the money, it became how can I enjoy my time while I have it now? How can I not overextend myself? How can I be here more for my kids and be more just lively as a mom? Because quite honestly, I was so over everything. It was just overwhelming. And so in order for me to take the leap into entrepreneurship, it meant that we had to sacrifice the income, because Journey to Launch wasn't earning money when I quit my job. It still doesn't replace my take-home income, what I had when I was working. So how did I feel comfortable enough with 3 kids at the time? I had just given birth, or, I was planning. So this is when I was pregnant with my 3rd, planning to possibly leave my job. How did I feel comfortable enough to take this leap? Now, granted, my husband still works. He's a teacher, and, his income, while bless it, we need it. It doesn't cover everything. So how did we figure out we could still take this leap to be able for me to do this, right? And so I use this fire calc tool, the same tool that I use with my husband to show him that, hey, if you put more towards your retirement account, we can have this amount of money in 15 years. This is a tool where I said, okay, if we're not able to save and invest for the next 2-3 years, because all our money is now going to cover our expenses, and if we're pulling from our savings account, because then I had to create a nephew fund, which I talk about in other episodes and I talk about overall in the FI course, is that you really, really need this runway in order to help you take this leap. So then how do you do that, right? So I created this tool and I still use it today. This is what's included in step 8, is that even though, right, because my issue too, why I created it was I would go to other calculators online. And, they would say, okay, how much do you want to put away for the next 20 years? And it would just assume that you're putting the same amount away for the next 20 years. But what about when things changed, right? What if I wanted to take a break from my job, which is kind of how I modeled this? What if I didn't have money to invest for 2 years? What if I'm paying off debt, right? So in the case of you, if you're listening and you're paying off debt, what if you can't aggressively invest or save for another 2 years? How do you put that into your financial independence, goals? And how do you map that out? So okay, I'll have X amount in 5 years, in 10 years, if I do this. Oh, but if I'm able to, max out my retirement account and or earn more income and do this, this is where I'll be in 10 years. So this tool allows you to do that. And it allows you to be flexible too around it. Because the other thing is there are levels to this. You can reach freedom and get to that stage 4 that I talked about, where you're at the work flexibility stage and you don't have all the money, right? So you don't have all the money that you'll ever need again. Maybe you're halfway there, but you have maybe a job where you can take a part-time job or a job that pays less that can supplement your income for the meantime, for the next 3-4 years while you're working on your business, while maybe you're traveling the world, when things open back up, who knows, right? How do you bake that into your financial independence journey? Because it's not just a set it and forget it. Things won't change. Things change all the time because there's so many things outside of our control. Our passions change, our preferences change. Again, if you are like me, as I grew my family, I realized it wasn't about the money. If it takes me 10, 15, years longer than I thought, which I don't think it will, but, my goal was to reach financial independence by 40. I am 37 now. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that. I'm 37 now. If it takes me now because I quit my job and, I'm an entrepreneur, it takes me longer. Maybe not. Maybe, because I am doing the bomb job at Journey to Launch and impacting people's lives, I make even more money, right? It's faster. But even if the trade-off is that if it takes me until I am 50, 55, even standard retirement age, but I get this quality of life now, I'll take that. right? And so me knowing what I was giving up, what the trade-off would be, and I love that I can come in and like play around with the tool, like it's so important. So even if you know this tool, right, like you can start to envision what it is you need to do every year, even if it takes from you paying off debt to not being able to max out a retirement accounts because life, right? Maybe you're trying to buy a house. Maybe you're trying to travel. You have to figure out how your saving and investing plan looks over time in order for you to reach this ultimate financial independence number. Okay, so just to review, this comes from the 10-step FI course and program framework that I created for you to figure out how to reach financial independence. And what I've done for you in this episode is just pull out, I think, some of the steps because I didn't want to overwhelm you. So just to recap, step 1, you got to define financial independence and financial freedom. It's super important to figure out what it means for you, whether that is being able to care for your family, being home more with your kids, or being able to do your own thing and create your own business. What does financial independence and financial freedom mean? You'll need to understand the numbers, but then just conceptually and what makes you happy, you'll need to understand that. Next step, step 2, you need to identify your current money mindset and your habits, but then also understand and see how you can change them if they're not positive into more positive mindsets and habits, things that will help fuel you. Step 3, understanding your goals. So not just saying you want to have $2 million invested, not just saying you want to pay off debt, but really understanding your goals, all of them, and they can change, by the way, but understanding how they fit into your financial independence journey, because there are levels, there are stages to this. So to understand what stage you're in and where to go through each one is important. Step 4 is completing a money assessment. So being brutally honest with where you are with your finances, all of it. I'm talking about, let's just like rip the Band-Aid off and do it. So understanding your assets, your liabilities, your income, and your expenses. And then the other step I mentioned is step 8. So I'm skipping steps because there are 10 of them and I don't want to overwhelm you in this episode. But the next step that I find really important is step 8. This is where you actually map out how you reach it. So how do you get from where you are with your assessment when you get all your numbers to how do you get to your ultimate financial independence number? But then how do you map out a flexible path? So if you want to take a break from work, want to start a business, want to start a family, want to just maybe not be so aggressive. Maybe you don't want to save and invest half of your income. Maybe you want to take luxurious vacations when the world opens back up. Maybe you want to buy that car or buy an investment property. How does that fit in? And so understanding how to map out a flexible path is important. And of course, I allow you to do that in the Fire Calc tool that I created. So again, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it gives you some tips for you mapping out your own financial independence path. If you want to join me, depending on when you listen to this, to the free class that I'm doing, it's going to be on October 22nd at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. You can sign up by going to journeytolaunch.com/free class. So regardless of whatever steps you take, this class will go through more of the steps and the journey or stages and what it is that's stopping you from reaching your goals. And if you happen to miss it, so if you happen to not be able to get to the class because you listened to this too late, then check out the FI course. So this is where I go more into detail on all these steps. So I'm so proud of this framework and this course I created. It's the first time that I'm launching this course by itself to the masses. And it's really just something that I'm proud of because the same framework that allowed me to live what you see now, this level of freedom and have these options. And I can't even begin to tell you how my life has opened up once I started this journey. Is like, I'm so happy to be able to bring it to other people. So the course will be open from October 23rd to 29th. So if you want to join, this is the first time I'm launching it this way. So it's going to be really special. We're going to have group coaching calls. There's going to be a group community feature so you can meet other journeyers who are also figuring this all out. It's going to be super fun. So if you are listening to this in that time frame, come join us at journeytolaunch.com/FI course. If you want to check out the episode show notes, that's where you can get links to anything that's mentioned and even get a transcribed version of this episode that you can read. Go to journeytolaunch.com or click the description of wherever you're listening to this episode. Now, you can also still grab your free Journeyer Jumpstart Guide by texting LAUNCH to 33777 or go to journeytolaunch.com/jumpstart. If you want to support me and the podcast and love the free content and information that you get here are 4 ways that you can support me and the show. 1, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you listen, whether that's Apple Podcasts, that purple app on your phone, your Android device, YouTube, Spotify, wherever it is that you happen to listen, just subscribe so you are not missing an episode. And if you're happening to listen to this in Apple Podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe there. I appreciate and read every single review. Number 2, follow me on my social media accounts. I'm at Journey to Launch on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and I love interacting with journeyers there. 3, support and check out the sponsors of this show if you hear something that interests you. Sponsors are the main ways we keep the podcast lights on here, so show them some love for supporting your girl. 4, and last but not least, share this podcast with a friend or family member or coworker so that we can spread the message of Journey to Launch. All right, that's it. Until next week, keep on journeying, journeyers.